Alpha Sessions with Emma Joyce.
Well, this is the Alpha Sessions. I'm Emma, and this is Jason Callear. Hello.
Hi, how you doing?
Good, thank you. How are you?
No, great. Hi, thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us on the show. I wanted to ask you actually, because it says you've been creating a new sound or a unique sound since you were 6 years old. How did it all come about?
I think it's just because my parents had got such a wide genre of music available to me, and as you start to play records in a house, and, there was things like Marty Robbins, Glenn Campbell, then Queens, Beatles, Stones, Eagles, and all sorts of things in between, and ABBA. So I think I've just grown up with that kind of mix of sounds going on anyway. So all those influences are in there, and I think that just comes through.
No, definitely, and you can hear that in your sound. It's very kind of, I want to say, new 70s rock.
Yeah.
Sounds a bit like juxtapositioned, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, it's been really difficult to try and find a place to pitch because any particular box you find yourself in means that you've almost got to then start to try and mould what you do to that box, and I think I've realised that I just can't do it. So I think you just write the songs, see how they come out.
Boxes are boring though. Like, it's not like you need to fit in a record store anymore under a certain like heading. Just
Yeah,
roll with it. It's fine.
just do it. Yeah. But I also kind of liked, back in the sort of mid-90s when everyone was doing unplugged. That kind of suits the way I play anyway and the way I write. So it's almost is like unplugged something. Yeah.
But I feel like unplugged makes it a bit more intimate.
Yeah.
Somehow.
Yeah. And also I think it's more defined. I think, because a lot of grunge bands were doing it, and all of a sudden you could hear what they were singing. So it was great.
Did you always want to be a musician?
Yeah, definitely. And I think, very quickly sort of started to get influenced by, well, there wasn't so much video around at the time, but I was obsessed with opening up the gatefold sleeves and looking at the bands and seeing what they looked like. And Queen was one of my really early obsessions, I suppose.
Oh yeah.
And particularly the drummer and the guitarist. So I think that's where that comes alive as well. And still to this day, I think they are my all-time favourite.
Have you got a favourite Queen song?
Oh, that's really difficult. I really like the second album, Queen 2, and there's a song called Ogre Battle, which is the first song of the second side. It's probably nobody's heard, but I love that. So dynamic. Yeah. Check that one out.
Oh, was it? I haven't actually heard that one. I'm embarrassed to say. So at what point did the guitar come along?
Almost by accident, but as most kids do, I think I went down with the mumps or something like that when I was about 6, and the guitar was a present. So frustratedly started to fiddle with that. My first guitar teacher was actually my tutor at the time, I suppose, in that year. And to this day, I still play on stage with this guy. So from 1978 to now, kept in touch. And his name's Dave Blant, and he's another all-rounder genius. He had some moderate success in the 80s with a band called Yeah Jazz, but it wasn't jazz. But yeah, he taught me loads of stuff, very folky. So that's coming in there. And then I did some classical exams, I suppose. I did grade 4 classical, but I didn't really stick with the written music side of it. I just put that down and started to just invent stuff instead. So, but you can probably hear a bit of classical in there at times as well.
Kind of gives a well-rounded bass there, doesn't it? So
yeah.
And what about drums?
No, I suppose actually drums was more of an obsession before the guitar came along, and I'd always play air drums to everything. So when I got to high school, there was a drum kit. I was probably about 14, and I thought, I'm going to have a go at that. And it was actually more natural than anything. So I decided to stick with drums, and I did so for probably about 20 years. And got good enough to go and do some proper shows and get around the country and get around into the States as well. So that was really good.
Because you did some touring with Michael Brees from the Alice Cooper band, didn't you?
Yeah, so I've got a friend that's a real Alice Cooper super fan, and he follows them everywhere, and he meets the band. And so Michael Brees was one of the original guitarists from the 70s, and how it came about, long story short, he wanted to come to the UK, assemble a band, do a couple of tours, and I just got the phone call, do you fancy playing drums for Michael Bruce? I wasn't a super fan myself, but I was aware of their tracks. But I got to learn some really kind of wonderfully complicated tracks from the early days, and go and do that. And then he invited us out to the Whiskey A Go Go in LA. So
amazing.
We'll do that.
What was it like playing there?
Brilliant. And you know what? I think there's so much more appreciation for not only just music in general, but also being from the UK was kind of something that they thought was amazing.
Yeah.
And asked me if we'd met the Beatles and things like that. But it was great, wonderful.
So, what do you prefer, guitar or drums?
I think drums are like a comfy pair of slippers.
Okay.
Or your favourite onesie, And there's also that kind of, I'm in my space, you can't come in here. A little bit more exposed when I'm out front, but I do enjoy it. I like being at the front, and I've been sort of doing that for 10 years now, out front, playing various things, covers and things like that, just acoustically, and just to really keep my hand in and make sure that should I get asked to play some of my tunes that I'm ready. But yeah, I enjoy both, but I think drums is probably just there. What
do you write with? Do you write with guitar or drums? I assume guitar?
Yeah. Always sort of fiddling around. Just handy thing, these voice recorders nowadays on the iPhones, because you get one of those moments where you think, well, I need to put that down, so just grab the phone, just record that. You might not touch it again for years, and sometimes I flick through some of these things and go, oh yeah, forgot about that. And then hopefully at the end of it, you've got 2 or 3 snips of things on your voice recorder that you can assemble into a song. So I think technology is very much coming into it nowadays as well. And even then, when you start recording, you can always go back and fiddle with it later and cut bits out and change things around. So I think it's great. The technology is really, I wouldn't be able to do it without that these days, I don't think, because you'd have to just write a song, rehearse it, then find a studio just like the old days and then record it. I do like the way that you've got that freedom and the technology behind it to do all of those things these days. But definitely guitar. I do fiddle with piano, but I'm not really an expert. I think I could just crash some chords together, and it's usually sort of assembled later on in the session. So I'll just plunk some bits of keyboards on over the top, and I love the old Hammond organ and things like that. So. Nice. Yeah, like to get a bit of that in there if I can.
You're going to play us a track now. It's called Fallen. It's from your 2016 album. Can you tell us what it's about?
Yeah, I suppose quite a lot of my stuff, unfortunately, is kind of boy meets girl, girl leaves boy, and all that kind of stuff. I try hard not to keep writing about that, relationships and things, and it's nothing personal. It's not like Adele. It's kind of just storytelling. So this is about a guy who's been with this girl for a real long time, and it's starting to fall apart, etc. And the backdrop of that really is, I think the guitar starts off with kind of a sort of flamenco stroke classical piece, and that was the riff that I came up with. And then you try to invent as many weird chords as possible to go behind that, which is what I was doing at the time. But it's a nice track, it just tells a story, and I think the 2 things go together quite well.
Said daddy I'd keep her, just in the dawn of the morning with you. Lessons taught me you can't hear the call on the morning. Walk through the door together. No more love. Your eyes don't need, can't read the signs that confront me. Walking 10 paces behind now, I'm numb. If I try to call you and tell you just how I would hold you, if only it'd stop and turn around now, Lord. Lay down, baby, lay down. Lay down, baby, lay down. Follow me home, she said. I'm going alone, don't even look back. Please turn the night falling apart. I don't understand what's wrong. How did we stay together for so long? Throw it all away, never again. Lay down, baby, lay down. Lay down, baby, lay down.
The Alpha Sessions with Emma Joyce.
How do ideas for tracks come to you? Do they just sort of happen, or do you work on them? How does it work?
I think sometimes the themes will come along once the song starts to take shape. I'll always have a melody there to go with the kind of rhythm, but yeah, the stories, I suppose, it's just sometimes it's kind of how does a song start to sound. For instance, if you take Brother, it got that kind of deep south bluegrass sound to it, and I decided to go with a theme from the Civil War. So with Fallen, yeah, it was just one of those what first came into my head, and sometimes it's just a few words that work. You know, words kind of sound nice sometimes, even though you have to assemble them to mean something in the end. It's kind of, you know, I think the first lyric just came out, and then from there I just took it from there. So it's a bit of a piecemeal process, really, and sometimes it takes just ages to get some lyrics together, but yeah, there it is. I think a lot of people are the same in the end of the day.
No, definitely. You've been making some reels on Instagram about how you make your music from a technical perspective.
Yeah.
I found that really interesting, but couldn't help but wonder, do you feel like you're giving away some of your secrets?
Yeah, I mean, we did have that conversation because so I work with Matt at Inspire quite a lot. So I'll start off putting some stuff together at home, and then invariably you kind of just email these things backwards and forwards, and he'll pull it into his system and make it sound really, really good. So there's the basics of, you know, how I might just put the sounds together and the tracks together, and then he's got loads and loads of processing techniques that he uses, which is probably industry standard anyway. But actually, I think, you know, to keep people engaged and interested, you know, I think you need some of that. I don't think there's any real trade secrets in there. I think some of it is kind of just tried and tested. There will be some bits and pieces that I'll reveal later on in terms of putting vocals down. So I'm just trying to get people engaged because, you know, I've never really been on a proper PR campaign before, and I think, you know, it's just, let's see what works. Let's see what gets people sort of interested.
No, definitely. And what was it that made you want to do it in the first place?
Because I think, you know, I turned 50 this year, and
Wow.
I think to myself, you know, I'd like to one of my dream things is really just to get a piece of music used on something. So let's say, Netflix rings and says, "Oh, I really like that track. Can we use it on our next series of something?" Yeah, that'd be like a dream come true. So I think, well, actually, nobody even knows what's out there because I keep writing this, put it on into Spotify. I'll sort of plop the link into a few Facebook pages and say, have a listen, and it doesn't work. You've got to do these things properly. So I think it got to the stage where, I was reaching out to people and saying, how can I get help to sort of push this?
Sure.
And, it's just networking and connections in the end. And Scarlet River came about and, looked to be really successful in what they were doing. So I said, yeah, let's give it a try.
Yeah.
And then you start to think about other things like how do you strip down your sound and let people know what you're doing and keep it interesting. So Mark Cottrell is a good friend of mine, and he's the guy that's the talent behind putting the reels together and really helping to sort of tell the stories. So I've got a great team around it now, and it's really exciting.
No, it sounds really exciting, and hopefully big things are yet to come in the near future.
Yeah, I hope so. I think there's a whole album of stuff waiting, ready to go, and I think we've just got to make sure that we've got people that are interested first before we drop all that new material, and then there's covers and all sorts of things are waiting in the pipe to come out. So it's really, we're really not short of material. It's just making sure we're engaged. I think that's the main thing.
I wanted to also ask you about your latest single, Brother, because it's the first sort of new material that you've had or you've released since 2016. Why now?
Again, I think years have sort of floated by, and you think to yourself, I think it's time to sort of seriously push this music once and for all, because it's just sort of bimbled along for so many years. Brother was on the last album, but we decided to sort of give it a tweak and make it radio friendly and a remaster and things like that. And actually, Rachel said, that's a great track. Why don't you put that out first, get people interested? It also, sits very nicely into the genre that she thinks people would like to hear. It's already gaining a little bit of positive feedback in terms of it's got a strange structure to it, and it has. I was kind of thinking, you sure that's the right track, because it's got no chorus? And people do like it because it is a little bit different, and it's quite a difficult song to play and sing because it's very complex in its picking style and timing, etc. But it's great when you get it right. It's one of those, it's really try hard, but it sounds great if it works. And yeah, it sounds like people are enjoying it, so I'm really happy with that.
It sounds great. And what's it about?
This is about the American Civil War. So I'd read some stories about guys that obviously, you could be very close friends and all of a sudden you're the wrong side of the fence. And there's a few stories about some guys that they'd fought together in the Crimean War and then ended up enemies in the Civil War. But actually, humanity overcomes all, and they help each other out. So, it's about two people that end up facing each other on the battlefield. But he puts his arm around him and gets him out of there, basically. So, literally, just a nice outcome from a very terrible situation.
Yeah. I find it really interesting that you are quite profound with your stories. And where they come from, because obviously, like you said, they're not based on personal experience, but they are. You kind of you take an idea and you follow it, all the way through. Do you find it? I guess, have you ever sung about personal stuff, and do you find it easier, kind of writing and singing about non-personal stuff?
There has been some bits based on experience, but in actual fact, if I'm in a bad place, I tend not to write at all. And because music's so powerful that it triggers memories. Yeah, I took the decision not to write or listen to music if I'm not if I'm not feeling great. So if something has happened or you've had a bad experience, I tend to just leave the music alone. So I'd rather music be a good place than a bad place. So certainly there's been some personal experience in terms of just shaping some of the stories and maybe having a pop at somebody in the nicest way. But I did a lot of creative writing at school and in English and things like that, and I just like to make up stories. So that was, I found, a lot easier in the end, just to keep it as a story, rather than singing about your breakup, etc. Yeah.
Is there more music coming out soon?
Yeah. So next single we hope to release in the next few weeks is Fortunate Sons, which you'll hear on the live session. Again, this is a story about some guys that used to play together in the old days, probably drank a little bit too much, and in the end it all fell apart, but getting the band back together and doing it again and feeling good about it and having a good gig, that's basically the story. And again, it's kind of very retro, probably a little bit Eagles-ish, that kind of strumming style and that kind of beat to it. So that'll be coming out in the next few weeks. We're going to film a live session and also make a video for that in the middle of September. So hopefully, around about the end of September, early October, that's ready. And then there's another 11 tracks on the album. So the album's called Train Rolls On. It is all kind of good time sort of driving music, if you like. You're driving down the interstate in the mid-70s in a stretch caddy. And that's the kind of stuff that'd be on the radio. That's how I imagined it. So it's I'm really itching to drop the album, but I think we've just got some work to do first to warm people up.
Blocks, 14 bars, we hit the stocks. Sunrise, tequila shots, we never stopped. Those guitars, old blue car, just like us, they fell apart. Friday night, lights so bright, we shone like stars. So long ago, where did it go? Thick as thieves, we had to leave it all behind, do it all again. We could stand together, side by side. We could learn together, line by line. We could run together, mile by tonight, we become fortunate sons. Talking loud, laughing how we reminisce. Remember memories of time well past. We string stop the song we left. Just one chord, never to forget. Friday night, played the best we ever did. Now we want it all. We can say that we won. Thick as thieves, we had to leave it all behind, do it all again. We can stand together, side by side. Fortunate sons. We can stand together. We can learn together. We can run together. Fortunate sons.
The Alpha Sessions with Emma Joyce.
Are you back doing gigs now?
I think we're just sort of preparing. There's some noise about trying to get some gigs out in the States as well. I've got a couple of guys that I'm good friends with that live in both Houston and another one in Dallas. There's a big show coming up in Houston in spring next year, which we're trying to get on. But I think, yes, we do need to be disciplined and get out there and start playing again. I don't have a band because, I've been a solo recording artist for 10 years, but there's enough people around me that I know that can help me out there. So I think
So is
just
that the aim?
assemble it and get cracking.
Cool. You've been in the industry you've been recording for 10 years. How do you think the industry's changed?
I think it's kind of a mix of good and bad. Great stuff is the thing that we talked about earlier, which is available technology now. So for the DIY recording artist, you can get a great sound out there and you can release your own music and it's all there for the taking. But as a consequence of that, you're now a very, very small fish in a huge pond. And so it's very difficult to sort of stand out amongst that sea of, artists, and all of them great. And then sometimes you think, you're checking out what the competition's doing. You think, oh, they're better than me. How much white? So then not bother. But you have to back yourself, and you believe in the music you're writing. So it's amazing how much comes out of just 12 notes in all of that sea of people. And I'll mess around with different genres as well, just to see what comes out of that. But thinking back to, the first recording studio I went into was in the late 80s, which was the old reel to reel, and the experience of being in a studio like that was probably better. But it was very expensive, and you had to be absolutely prepared. And you came out with your demo tape, and then you got what you got. There was no going back. So that was good but bad at the same time. So I think technology's changed it for sure, and opportunities are there, and greater social media, everything else that goes with it. I think so. For someone like me now at 50, is now taking advantage of that. Because I suppose I could get out and go on the road and do some touring, but it's a lot more difficult now than it would have been when I was 20. So it's got to take advantage of what else is there to try and give you a leg up.
Those are some good tips as well for people that were just starting out. So if you could have a dream collaboration, who would it be with? I think I know the answer, but I just want you to verify. If I could probably sit in on a session with Brian May and Roger Taylor. Get Freddie back, but I also feel like an imposter in some ways. But it'd be great to jam with some of the greats, and I love, the late 60s, early 70s bands and the blues revival scene and things like that. So rather I'd probably like to just get in a time machine and go back to 67 or something like that and just have a jam with quite a few people. That'd be wonderful. Well, thank you so much for coming in. It's been a pleasure. I wanted to also ask one more question. If people wanted to find out more about what you're up to, how they can follow you on social media, where can they go? What can they do?
Okay, so a couple of things really, I suppose. Head over to the website. From there, there's links to all of the other social media platforms, and there's a couple of videos and some bits and pieces on there to view. You're probably aware of the app called Linktree. If you head over to Linktree, you'll find me on there, and from there you can go wherever. I think that's the best way. But also keep an eye on Instagram, because there's loads of interesting bits and pieces that get posted on there a few times a week. I think that's the place to be at the moment.
Cool. Well, thank you very much again, and look forward to catching up, hopefully in person soon.
Great. Thanks for having me on.
Find the light, walk to the end and cross the line. Stay a while, look back and take it down to the wire. Standing around like you're shoveling dirt from a grave. It all stands to reason, the shambles strips all that we made. Tear it down, so to keep right out of sight. Put down your pencils, lock up and turn out the light. Oh yeah, I'm on the outside. Explore all the talent, make sure that all sensibilities lost on the breeze. When it's all my Lord, something's lost inside of me. Bury your heads right up to your necks till they call you your life. Spinning around, losing and pinning on someone else. It's your call, but it's the silver or go to war. Put in the expenses and knock off and getting the drink. Maybe tomorrow you'll realize how much you stink. Oh yeah, I'm on the outside. Explore all the talent, make sure that all sensibility is lost on the breeze. When it's all